Anyway. Welcome to
Mike's Daily Podcast.
That's what this show is called. Mike's Daily Podcast. I'm at Café Anyway, somewhere in Podcastro Valley. The last place on earth. It's Mike Matthews in a song called
Mike's Daily Podcast.
It's called Mike's Daily Podcast, and it's Mike Matthews, and hey, I'm singing to you, despite the fact my stomach's been all like weird, but it's not the flu. I don't know what it is. It's like when you've eaten a jalapeno pepper and it's stuck in your stomach somewhere. That's not fun. That's nowhere. That's what I care about at the moment. And prices.
Mike's Daily Podcast.
Prices. In the San Francisco area, prices went up 1.8%
Mike's
over the past 2 months.
Daily
And if you look back
Podcast.
over a year, it's gone up
Yeah.
almost 4% prices. Does it seem like more? Yeah. The 2-month increase was influenced by higher prices for gasoline and for shelter, for your rent, for your mortgage, etc. The food prices were unchanged over the past 2 months. Really? Food prices not changed at all? That's interesting. This according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. They sent that to me, to my email, mikesdailypodcast@gmail.com. Thank you. I don't know. I mean, are they talking about food at the grocery store? Are they talking about food at restaurants? Because restaurant food has gone up for sure. But it is up over the past year. Since a year ago, it's been up over 3%. Energy prices increased almost 9% over the past 2 months. And since a year ago, it's up 18%. And the index for all items, less food and energy, increased 1.7 over the past 2 months. Again, it's up 3.1% since a year ago. But you know what? Nationally, prices have risen about that much as well. 3.4% over the past year, a little less.
And here's today's podcast picture.
That's fascinating. That is what happens in the world today. The podcast picture is of the wonderful cats that adorn the house in which I live. The two cats, Patches and Rocky. Patches, the feral cat that has become really friendly and kind and sleeps in the bed with me and lets me pet him. And then Rocky, who is we've had since he was a kitten, and he's super friendly. And they both hang out and they play and they get along, and that's awesome. See a picture of the two of them at mikesdailypodcast.com. Yes, the late great Basil the Boxer would probably have ran them out of the backyard, said, "Get out of here. We don't need your kind. Your cat kind." Let's see. So podcasts are helping to change how we view mental health, according to Irish Medical Times and Podcast Facts from the fine people there at Podcast Prone Newsletter is where I got that. For mental health, podcasts are helping to change how we view mental health, turning it from something stigmatized into a common shared experience. That is completely true. If you go back 20 years ago even, it wasn't as, well, now, if you go back 20 years, you've got Sopranos, you've got, hey, even a gangster has to go see a therapist. It's starting to get a little more, okay, everything's cool with therapy. Now, you go back even further in time to the 70s, you've got Bob Newhart, who is a psychiatrist, and a psychologist. Who wouldn't want him as a psychologist? Bob Newhart.
Now, that's legit.
But even then, with that show, they were poking fun at folks that went to see a psychologist, Bob Newhart. They poked a little bit of fun. It was not like in your face, ha ha ha, being really mean about it. Just, it was very calm, sort of in the background. I used the word sort of, the phrase sort of, which you hear too many podcasters say. Dang it. I have to put $1 in the stupid word and phrases jar. So they also assist podcasts in increasing our understanding of mental health. There are podcasts about mental health, and they have assisted their audience in understanding how to manage stress, to be kinder to yourself, and pointing people towards other helpful tools and resources, unless they get blocked by YouTube, because YouTube will scan the content if you're doing a podcast and you upload it to YouTube. The type where, I mean, like I was saying, I have said many times, video is not a podcast.
I can't believe, what the hell is this place anyway?
But you can take the video and make it into a podcast. A podcast is a listening type thing. But you can take a listening type thing and turn it into a video on YouTube. They just show, like on my podcast, it's just the podcast picture whilst the audio plays. And you hear the wonderful people in the background making all kinds of noises in the restaurant. Thank you. That's all right. I'll pick that up later. So podcasts have helped people about mental health. These podcasts have helped people express their feelings and thoughts, which they found hard to explain before. And the podcasts focusing on mental health have made listeners feel understood and less isolated. People appreciated these podcasts because they learned that having mental health problems is common, which helped them connect with others experiencing the same issues. I think this whole COVID thing we just went through, where we were all at home, we know what it did to us. We know the anxiety levels that we felt. We know everything else that was going on in the crazy year 2020 and of the other subsequent years where things got crazy, and a lot of us were still at home for work. A lot of us still work from home.
Anyway.
Cannot. Café Anyway, because I'm at Café Anyway. I got to be here. I can't remote work with the Café Anyway. I got to be in the area to clean up that mess that guy made over there. But I'm going to leave right now because I don't feel like cleaning it up at the moment. Podcasts can be an easy way to learn and get helpful advice. People find them easier to use than formal mental health services, which can be hard to access, especially for those living in places where these services are not available and wait times are long and costs are high. So, hey, let's hear it for podcasts. Woo! But yeah, you should go see a professional if you're really suffering, and that whole thing, use your brain with that. Outside of Café Anyway, somewhere in Podcastro Valley, the last place on earth. Podcasts, not all podcasts have you using your brain, it seems. Okay, let's see. We have some people outside of Café Anyway.
Good morning, Mr. Matthews.
Look at them, all so happy to see me. That's very nice of you. Thank you. Hello, I'm Chely Shoehart, Good Show Supervisor. I don't like being outside, Mike Matthews, because of all the allergies and stuff. It's like really crazy out here, Mike Matthews. Yeah, people have a lot more allergies these days and a lot more anxiety. The 2 A's. So, how are you dealing with both of those 2 A's, Chely? Mike Matthews, I like snow globe. There's a really cool snow globe, Mike Matthews. Oh, it's got water in it. I mean, it's got AI in it. That's right. The AI tells the snow to float around inside the snow globe. That's brilliant, Chely Shoehart. Thank you, Mike Matthews. Look who else is here. Oh, Mike, this is Floyd the Floorman. And this is John Deere, the engineer. Mike, I hear you've had some stomach problems lately. Yes. And Pepto-Bismol has become such a thing. It's so, persimmon. It's so superfluous. No, it has absolutely everywhere you go in society you hear about is what I'm trying to say. Pepto-Bismol and the color of that particular item, fluid, is now its own color. People go, oh yeah, it's Pepto Pink. So, well, yeah.
You ready?
I guess it helps a little bit, but yes, I'm sure the people that make that substance are laughing all the way to the bank. But yeah, it helps a little bit. So you listen to this podcast and you go, wow, Mike, there's so much structure to the show. There's so much, everything was thought out well in advance. That's why it's so good. Yes. Well, the morning shows that you listen to, the really successful ones, they have these high-priced consultants that help them to make it big, a big show. They do all kinds of things. They have a whole list of things that they do to make sure that it is a huge morning show. And what they do is they give them tips. They tell the morning show people, this is what you need to do. I found this out. I found this from a behind the scenes email that I received. This is what they tell them. They say, plan the show the night before. That's what they tell them. And they use something called a show prep planner. And that helps them to map benchmarks. Benchmarks are those things like the segment where, oh yeah, they're going to do that, you know, that like the gossip segment. Or, hey, they're going to give away a prize to an office that's listening right now, that kind of thing. So they map all that out for each hour.
Wow, that's wild.
That is wild, isn't it? For each hour of the show, they do that the night before. These morning shows that make a lot of money, let's just say. They know what they're doing. They've been doing it for years. There's also a thing that they do where they research the show content. They're told to find interesting bits, news, and fun stories on the internet before the show comes on the air. Oh, yeah. That might be helpful to do it before the show. And also they are told to plan every break ahead of time, every element. And then they tell them to break down the sequencing of the elements, how to begin, how to exit. It's all thought out. Now, I don't say every single morning show is like that, but a lot of them. And also, they tell them, watch out for the show tone. Sound friendly, upbeat, fun, and personable, they tell them. And they say to them, remember, negativism.
It's Bison Bentley's. Do you know that?
Hey, this is Bison Bentley, and Mike Matthews has a couple of stories that'll make you want to ask yourself, do you know that?
Do you know that? That's right, Bison. Did you know that negativism pushes people away from you? Oh, what? What a surprise. And then they also say have at least one benchmark or a bit every half hour. Every half hour, you got to have at least one thing. And then practice brevity. This is what you hear in music radio. You don't hear this so much on talk radio, where there's no music at all and they talk about politics or sports.
Anarchy! I don't even know what that means, but I love it!
They tell morning show hosts, keep the bits short for flow, leaving listeners wanting more, not less. Edit out details and any redundancy. And I would say, I would agree with this. There are a lot of talk show hosts that don't do the music, that are talking about politics or sports or da-da-da-da-da. I hear this one word that they use over and over again, and that's the word again. They say again.
Do you have any safe spaces?
Safe spaces?
Yes, where people can go to get away from the colonialist mentality. As long as there's a diversity, equity, and inclusion policy, we'll be fine.
See, that's all you need. It's just remember the word again is the same as redundancy, and watch out for redundancy. That's what they tell these morning show hosts. So when you're listening to a morning show, realize that they're doing all that stuff. That's all what's going on behind the scenes. They also tell them to talk up the music and show passion for the format. And occasionally provide music info into and out of the songs, beyond just the title and artists. You want to sound like a fan. Even if you aren't a fan, you want to sound like one. Okay. Wow.
Burgermaster.
Let's say there's some morning show host somewhere who hates Taylor Swift, and they play Taylor Swift at least 3 times, not an hour, but let's say they play Taylor Swift once an hour. So they got to sound like they love Taylor Swift. They got to sound like, and they got to use the terms like they're big fans. Tay-tay. Oh, whenever you hear a morning show host say that, it generally means they cannot stand Taylor Swift. They're just throwing it out there to make it sound like they're
That's enough. Put down the mic.
No, I'm exposing things. I can't put down the mic. This is what we're doing on today's show, is exposing, taking you behind the curtain back there where the Wizard of Oz is, and it's not the Wizard of Oz. Also, they tell morning show hosts to sound local with relatable community activities, which can involve the listener. And they say be likable and positive. That goes back to avoiding negativism. Stay away from politics, race, and religion. See, this is definitely for a music format station, not a talk format. Avoid sarcasm. No sarcasm. If you're targeting an audience of women, what? Women don't understand sarcasm? What? Wow. Note to self.
Note to self.
See? It pays not to be a professional sarcastic fella. Oh, and it says, here it says, stress the daily big event. If the important topic is the big one on people's minds and the one that is talked about all day, and develop it hourly. Have a listener phone call and participation like an interactive game. Talk about top-rated TV shows. Oh, I used to hear that all the time when I was doing music radio. Got to do the top-rated TV shows. American Idol, Chicago Fire, Young Sheldon. Got to talk about them. Focus on the shows your listeners watch. And be topical. Talk about the top current movies and their stars. Talk about Fall Guy. Wait, wasn't the Fall Guy like it bombed at the box office? Why would I want to talk about that? And ask what else. With every story, look for a local angle. Can the story be enhanced with audio? Consider using a celebrity clip, an excerpt from a television show or movie, the hook from a song or sound effect. What else is what they're saying? That's fascinating, isn't it? I think that's true with any job that we have, is to ask what else. Like, what else would you like? I'm pouring you some root beer. Would you like some fries with that? That kind of thing. That is a good question. All right. Well, that's it for today's podcast. I hope it was enlightening in some fashion. But if it wasn't, my name's Joe Rogan. And thank you for that was a little sarcasm there. I just, see? And I'm losing all my female audience because I'm doing the sarcasm. Oops. All right, well, if you'd like to call in and tell me something sarcastic or anything interesting, here's a phone number to call.
Call Mike at the Café Anyway hotline. Area code 510-228-4640.
Yeah, because we're all interactive and stuff, right? And the next show, we will have the wonderful Benita, the Disgruntled Fiddle Player, and the Brewmaster with all things Mike's Daily Podcast, the past podcast pictures, past podcasts, the Mike's Daily Podcast radio station and everything. Go to this website, mikesdailypodcast.com, and with more on that, it's A-Frame. Don't laugh at me.
No.
Mike's Daily Podcast is written and produced and performed by Mike Matthews. His podcast is super easy to find. Download or listen to his show and read his blog at mikesdailypodcast.com.
Email Mike now at mikesdailypodcast@gmail.com.
See you tomorrow. Bye!